भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं तं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Gurubhyo Namaha. Now we have entered the chapter 3, the Karma Yoga, and here is the essence of the verses 1 and 2 of the commentary given by Maharishi Ji. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi Chet Karmana Te mata buddhi janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi kesava vyamisreneva vyakyena buddhim mohayasi vame tat ekam vada nischitya yena shreyah aham apnuyam. Here is the English translation. Arjuna said, if thou considerest knowledge superior to action, O Janardana, why dost thou spur me to this terrible deed, O Keshava? I repeat again. If thou considerest knowledge superior to action, O Janardana, why dost thou spur me to this terrible deed, O Keshava? Verse number 2. With these apparently opposed statements, thou dost, as it were, bewilder my intelligence. So having made thy decision, tell me the one by which I may reach the highest good. I repeat again. With these apparently opposed statements, thou dost, as it were, bewilder my intelligence. So, having made thy decision, tell me the one by which I may reach the highest good. This chapter is opening with Arjuna's question. Many of the commentaries have often suggested that Arjuna is confused. These commentaries have clearly failed to understand the aptness of Arjuna's questions in helping to develop Bhagavan's theme. His questions represent the glorious links between the teachings which precede and follow them in the ascending order of the Lord's discourse. And it is unfortunate that most of the commentators have missed the great depth of understanding from which Arjuna was speaking and asking questions, because they have misunderstood his position right from the first chapter. Arjuna, from his high level of consciousness, is able to distinguish the finest points of Bhagavan's discourse and to weigh them up in terms of practical life. His alert mind locates many contradictory statements in the teaching, and he makes mention of these in the following verses too. It is Arjuna's opening question which is serving to unfold the wisdom of action in the light of knowledge, and this forms the main subject of this chapter. Further, the question that Arjuna raises is of deep significance, and it has great value in furthering the theme of Bhagavan's discourse. It is this question of Arjuna's that brings forth the complete doctrine of action from Bhagavan's lips. Now let us take a close examination of the context for this question. In the whole of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's questions present themselves in a natural way, and this is not only because of the skill of Bhagavan's teaching, but also Arjuna's promptness in following it, and also the nature of the subject under consideration. Here it is important to understand the teaching about life deals with many points, even points opposed to each other, for it deals with the unlimited fields of the relative and absolute phases of existence. Now these fields of relative and the absolute lie so far apart that in their essential nature there exists no link. So again, there is no link between the absolute and the relative. This is the way it seems. Here, the mind can serve as such a link because it is able to remain in activity and in the state of absolute being at the same time. So here again, the mind can serve as such a link because it has the capacity to remain in activity and the absolute being at the same time. Moreover, it uses activity as a means to end activity. Again, mind uses activity as a means to end activity and thus to make possible the state of transcendental consciousness, which is referred to as Turiya, the Atma or the Self. And thus we can see that karma, the activity, becomes a means to yoga, the union. Here Arjuna is asking Bhagavan If thou considerest knowledge superior to action, why dost thou spur me to this terrible deed? Again, if thou considerest knowledge superior to action, why dost thou spur me to this terrible deed, O Keshava? In order to probe deep into the nature of Arjuna's understanding about knowledge, it is necessary to analyze the teaching of the second chapter. So let us go over what the second chapter is saying about this knowledge. Life has two aspects, relative and absolute. The relative aspect is perishable and the absolute is imperishable. In order to give meaning to life, it is first necessary to bring the perishable aspect into living harmony with the imperishable. And Bhagavan says, this is achieved through action according to one's dharma. And again, what is this dharma? This dharma maintains existence in a way that furthers one's own evolution and that of others. So in order to set the whole stream of life flowing naturally in the ascending current of dharma, it is necessary to cultivate the resolute intellect. This then will ensure that both aspects of man's life, perishable and imperishable, the body and the self, will naturally maintain their dharma, and they will be in perfect harmony. Further, they will be in perfect harmony, the self remaining in its state of eternal freedom in absolute being, and the mind entertaining activity which will naturally be in tune with the process of evolution. We also understand from the second chapter that in order to cultivate the resolute intellect, one has to be without the three gunas. And one has to be completely out of the field of activity, established in the transcendental state of being. And with constant practice in gaining this state of transcendence or transcendental state of being, without the three gunas, then the mind gains fixity in being, and one becomes aware of the self or being as separate from activity. In this state, one acts in the world and continues this activity while established in the eternal contentment and freedom of divine consciousness. Although the knowledge begins with the intellectual understanding of the two aspects of life, perishable and imperishable, it becomes a living reality only when, through the practice of transcendental meditation, one becomes directly aware of the self as separate from activity. So, this awareness then is the state of knowledge, the state of established intellect. Arjuna so far has rightly understood all that Bhagavan has spoken about knowledge, but he is demanding confirmation that his understanding is correct. Here again, Arjuna is saying, if thou considerest knowledge superior to action, he is not asking this question not because he has failed to grasp the principle of action in the state of knowledge, but because he has thoroughly understood what all Bhagavan has said before. He understood that when a man acts without longing, having relinquished all desires, free from the sense of I and mine, he attains to peace. He has understood that by fighting he will not incur sin. But for the great heart of Arjuna, merely to escape from sin is not a sufficient reason for plunging into action. He judges the action of fighting at its face value and finds that to kill his dear ones would be a terrible deed. So he raises the question whether on the strength of knowledge he could after all avoid the terrible deed of battle. Having reached this high state of established intellect, should not a man have freedom to act or not to act? And this is Arjuna's question from his high state of consciousness. Here Arjuna is using Lord's teaching about the freedom which knowledge gives, in favor of freedom to choose what action he wishes to perform. He probes deep into Bhagavan's teaching and finds that this point has not yet been answered. This question further indicates that Arjuna has understood not only the relationship between action and knowledge, but also that between action and dharma. He has understood Bhagavan's teaching about dharma. He has understood that one's own dharma is the best criteria for judging the appropriateness of an action, and that for a Kshatriya, a battle such as this is in accord with dharma. But here Bhagavan is putting stress on the knowledge, and this is giving Arjuna an opportunity to question him about the relationship between knowledge and dharma. And this has not yet been made clear, and without which the teaching about action remains incomplete. Arjuna wants to know whether knowledge can override dharma to the extent of permitting one to forego a particular deed, which he thinks is a terrible deed. He wants to know whether knowledge gives a man sufficient freedom to enable him to make his own choice about action. And here Arjuna is implying that if it does, he would like to choose to forego this terrible deed. In the next verse, Arjuna is further saying, with these apparently opposed statements, thou dost, as it were, bewilder my intelligence. So having made thy decision, tell me the one by which I may reach the highest goal or the highest good. Here the key words are apparently opposed statements, bewilder my intelligence, having made thy decision, tell me what is the highest good. Arjuna wants to verify whether these apparently opposed statements point to some hidden principle which has not yet been expressed, or whether there exists some hidden link joining them together. Now let us take a look at these apparently opposed statements. So in chapter 2, verse 38, Bhagavan enjoined Arjuna to come out to fight. But in verse 45, he said to him, be without the three gunas, which means come out of the field of activity. Again, in verse 47, he said, you have control over action alone. Do not attach yourself to inaction. Then again, in verse 48, he expressed the synthesis of action and the established intellect in the words, saying, established in yoga, O winner of wealth, perform actions. And in verse 49, however, he went on to destroy the very principle of this synthesis by declaring, far away indeed from the balanced intellect is the action devoid of greatness. Again, far away indeed from the balanced intellect is the action devoid of greatness. Here Arjuna wants to verify whether these apparently opposed statements point to some hidden principle which has not yet been expressed. The words apparently opposed indicate Arjuna's modesty. He softens the expression by adding apparently, and again when he wants to convey that the Lord is bewildering his intelligence, he shows his modesty by adding as it were. Further, in the 7th verse of chapter 2, Arjuna had surrendered himself to Bhagavan, saying, "Tell me decisively what is good for me." And now he finds that he is being provided with two boats. He is being provided with two boats, each apparently going in an opposite direction. He is asked simultaneously to come on to this and to get into that. So he stands bewildered and asks, "Tell me which boat to take, this or that, for if I start in the two boats, I am sure to drown." So again we go back to the verse. With these apparently opposed statements, "Thou dost as it is were, bewilder my intelligence. So, having made thy decision, tell me the one by which I may reach the highest good." Arjuna needed some intellectual jolt, some means of quickly shaking the intellect to bring him out of the state of suspension. And to this end, Bhagavan showered Arjuna with apparently opposed statements of truth. Thus, Bhagavan succeeded in bringing Arjuna's mind to the level where he could think in a practical manner. And Arjuna became so practical as to say, "Thou dost bewilder my intelligence." Now Bhagavan begins the second course of his teaching, the most glorious aspect of the wisdom of practical life. Here ends the essence of these first two verses of the chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Maharishi's commentary of Bhagavad Gita. We will continue tomorrow with Bhagavan's teaching of this Karma Yoga. Jai Gurudev, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.
गीताशास्त्रमिदं पुण्यं यः पठेत् प्रयतः पुमान्
Gurubhyo Namaha. Here is the meaning of the Guru Sloka here. I offer my salutations to my Guru, who removes the darkness of ignorance of the unenlightened by applying the ointment of this Adhyatmic knowledge and opens the eyes to this light of enlightenment. Now the meaning of the Gita Mahatmyam slokas. The first one who recites with devotion this Bhagavad Gita scripture, which is the bestower of all knowledge, wisdom and virtue, will attain the holy abode of Bhagavan Vishnu, which is always free from the mundane qualities based on fear and lamentation. Next, if one reads Bhagavad Gita very sincerely, then by the grace of Bhagavan, the karmas of the past misdeeds will not act upon him. Next, one may clean and purify himself daily by taking a bath in water. But if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganga called Bhagavad Gita, for him the impurities and the afflictions of material life is altogether vanquished. Next, because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Paramatma, the transcendental eternal self, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One needs to only read or hear this Bhagavad Gita with great attention. In this present age, people are so busy, involved in so many mundane activities, that they do not have the time to read all of the Vedic literature. But all this extensive reading is not necessary. Just this one book, Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literature and it is directly spoken by Paramatma Krishna. Next, by drinking this Ganga water of this Bhagavad Gita, the quintessence of the Mahabharata emanating from the mouth of Bhagavan Krishna, the cycle of birth and death comes to an end, which means one does not have to take birth again. Next, all the Upanishads are like a cow, and the milker of this cow, called the Upanishads, is Lord Sri Krishna. Arjuna is the calf drinking this beautiful nectar, and the fortunate devotee is also the drinker and enjoyer of this milk or the nectar, which is the essence of the Upanishads. Next, if there need be only one holy scripture, the divine Gita sung by Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and if there be only one worshipable God, let it be Paramatma Krishna, the transcendental eternal self. And if there is only one mantra, let it be the holy names of Bhagavan. And if there is only one duty, let it be the devotional service to Bhagavan Krishna and his teaching. Jai Gurudev.